Good evening, all FIE's Junk Rush. Feel it in your belly. Good night, folks. This is V. Charmaine Roll along with my co-host, Mr. Kevin Paparazzi Cooper, and my producer, Miss Brighton Roll. And folks, tonight is a special night. It's a legend, a legend of our time tonight, and we have the one and only Edward McPhee. But folks, before we get to Ed, we're going to share some news. Papa, is there any Junkanoo news for this week? Is there anything in the news that we need to know for this week?
There's nothing from my side this week. I fall along in my category. I didn't look up anything. Everybody is talking virtual Junkanoo, but that's another subject for another day. That's the only thing on the news department.
Well, I posted a question, what is virtual Junkanoo? And my question was posted for to see what the response was going to be. And I had some really interesting response. So we're going to see how that works out. A lot of people are talking about it. I don't think a lot of persons understand what virtual means. It just means everything done really on a digital platform. So, you know, there's a lot of talk about it because a lot of people were talking about the monies that has to go into having the virtual Junkanoo versus what we have now. So we're going to see where that goes. But
we on a virtual show right now. For those who don't know what virtual means, this is a virtual platform. We're on a virtual show. It's just like you said, it's a digital platform. My thing, Charmaine, is I voiced my opinion last week, and I said, you know, this isn't really the time to be focusing on Junkanoo parades and as such. You know, the powers that be already said there's not going to be a parade. I think it's the time for us to focus on getting healthy, staying healthy, and trying to sustain ourselves during this pandemic. But I also think that this is a time for us, like someone said on Facebook, it's time to do some house cleaning. Trying to make sure that when we do get back on the road, we could try iron out a lot of the issues that a lot of Junkanoos have with the parades as they stand today. We have one Junkanoo group that claims that they disassociate themselves from a particular organization, and that doesn't bear well for Junkanoo. We have two groups that show up or don't show up for Junkanoo, but they seem to reap all the rewards from groups that do show up. So Junkanoos have a lot of concerns, and this is the time now we should be addressing these concerns as opposed to trying to sugarcoat things and try to band-aid things and try to, should I say, create another industry when we have an industry in distress as we speak. That's my 2 cents.
Well, I know because of all the pandemic, the restrictions and everything we have going on now, we could use this platform of COVID to have Zoom meetings like what we're having now, to have a lot of discussions to see the way forward for us to make it back to be in a safe manner. Because, you know, all of us may be having Junkanoo withdrawals now and everything, but as we know, a lot of the world has experienced a third wave of the pandemic. And so as that is happening, I think it's going to happen here also because we're going into colder weather, and the virus seems to thrive more in colder conditions. And if you notice, I don't even see the ministry no more now even post updates with that anymore. I don't know if you know, I don't get any dashboard reports and anything anymore. So I don't know what's going on from that end in terms of that, but we just have to try and keep faith. And, you know, we have these, we've been having a lot of different groups. We congratulate one again on their Black Lives Matter video. And as you know, in July, we did a unified video with all the different Junkanoo groups, all the choreograph sections. So we've been trying to put some things in place to, you know, to do a lot of Junkanoo and just to keep Junkanoo alive and going. You know, that's where we stand from that point. And, a lot of other groups have been doing a lot of little things here and there, little sessions and little seminars and stuff. So, we just got to come together on a bigger platform to try come together and work out a lot of the kinks, all of the little things that all the tribalism, we need to rest that down first and foremost, so we can elevate to go more on an international level. Okay, folks. So tonight we have a special guest tonight, Mr. Ed McPhee, my cousin on my daddy's side. Ed McPhee, how are you tonight, sir?
Well, Mom, I'm blessed,
We can't
and I
see
want to.
your hand is in the way, so we can't see your face. Yeah, there you are.
Okay, I just want to say, thank you for affording me this opportunity, and it is from the time you call me, I say, boy, this way I can get some of that Junkanoo spirit out,
Right.
because of not being able to be in the shack and things like that. And let me just start off by saying I put out there, I asked some of my colleagues to send me some brown paper. Well, they was wondering what I was going to do with the brown paper. Well, you see it right in the back there. All right. I had some brown paper, and I say, well, let me pull down these stuff I had up, these old pieces, and this is what I've been doing. So I just want to thank you again for affording me the opportunity, and hope that I'm able to um, share with you and the Junkanoo community some information that is pertinent to our culture.
Right. And before we go any further, we'd like to wish you condolences of the passing of your great grandson. I had posted something in several groups I think about a week and a half ago. You called, so I shared it in a lot of groups, for prayers up. So we wish you condolences from the Junkanoo world on behalf of the passing of your great grandson, Grayson.
Yes, and I thank you very much. And as a matter of fact, someone sent me a video um, um, of the valley, and no pun intended, but of the valley and city of gold. And I sent that to the family, which they are in Georgia, and I sent that to them in honor of him, because of putting out his problems out there, the response that we've been getting on prayers and well wishes. I told him he's been adopted. He was adopted into the Junkanoo community. So, again, I want to say thank you for the support that was given to us.
No problem. Well, let's talk Junkanoo. So, Mr. Ed McPhee, I call you a Junkanoo historian, a Junkanoo enthusiast. I call you a great storyteller. And so, it was my wish to invite you. I've been trying to invite you for some time back. We had so many. I didn't want to bring you in with nobody. I wanted to have you all to myself with one show. And I tell Papa, I say, Papa, we're going to Ed. And so tell us a little bit about yourself. I know a lot of times when you get together, you carry me way back in a lot of stories from growing up with my Grammy and, coming to Junkanoo. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you were born and where you started in Junkanoo.
I was born on Black Point, Exuma, one of the small island or keys in the Exuma chain. And that was November the 28th, 1945. My mother, Evelyn Zoe Patton, and father, Joseph Boo McPhee, were residents of Black Point. My mother connection is from Inagua, the Daxons in Inagua, are my mother's people. And my dad, McPhee, people is from the Georgetown area in the Exumas. but both of them migrated to Black Point. At an early age, around the age of about 4 or so, I came to Nassau with my mother. At first, we were staying on Shirley Street um, in the Hawkins Hill area. And we were in the area there for a year or so. And then we moved down into Sears Addition. Sears Addition, or Sears Road as it was called. It's one of the 3 hilly areas. If you start from Centerville, you have Hawkins Hill, which was my first residential area. And then you have Sears Road, Sears Hill. Then, well, that is a road stretched from Shirley Street as well as Hawkins Hill and Centerville out to Wolf Road. And we moved there. The area that we lived in was called Malone Yard. The owner of that property was a gentleman, B.C. Malone. His business is on Middle Street, as we call it, between Bay Street and Shirley Street, where Model Bakery is. Okay, he had his business there. If you come down from Hawkins Hill and you get to that juncture, past Shirley Street and the next juncture, if you look to the west, his resident and shop is still there. It's on the northern side. It's about two buildings down. Well, Mr. Malone was also a property owner, and on his property he had a farm where he planted different fruits, vegetables, and what have you. And my mother got some employment with him. That's where I spent my early childhood. And in that yard, there were some 17 houses or homes. And you had 17 different families that would have either come from either Andros, Exuma, Cat Island.
Right, like a village right there.
Yes, all of the Bahamian gathering, and it was in that setting that I grew up, along with 5 other brothers, and later on I had 5 other brothers and 3 sisters. I started my education at Sutton Prep School, which is down there on Wolf Road, which is now Stephen Dillett, okay, opposite Mukamabad Alley, and where Hutch. Well, anyhow, I'm jumping ahead of myself here, but that's where I started my education, and from there I came up to Sutton Junior, which is on the corner of Wolf Road and Centerville, which is now Columbus Primary, and between Sutton Junior and Sutton Senior, that's where I had my education. During my years, there was a mandatory school leaving, 14 if you were not able to traverse into the higher educational bracket, you would have had to leave school, right? And that would have been around either the 6th or the 7th grade. You would leave school, and that was the position that I was in at the age of 14. I was out of school. I was fortunate enough because in our area, we had a store that was owned by Mr. Gibson, Charles Hartman Gibson. If I may, I'm quite sure. He was a nephew of I call him, he was a nephew of Sir Timothy Gibson, our national anthem writer and composer. And he had a store, as I say, and that's where I got my employed. My first solid employed, because before then I would either be around the area doing jobs as a handy person at the time, but I never thought of it as a handy person. It was something that was to provide a living for us. And my father was a fisherman. He was also a farmer and a fisherman. And at times he would go for a period of time, and my mama, she would be there to oversee us, along with the lady that adopted my dad. He was adopted by Clarence and Eunice Wright on Black Point, Exuma. Clarence Wright was a man who was also a seafaring man, and Eunice Wright was a lady of a lady. She was mama, grandma to me. Yes, and when we moved down to Nassau, Mama Eunice came with us, and she was our caretaker while Mama went out to work. Mama was a woman who would work in the field, and when she would come home, she would go about doing chores for other homes, just to provide for us. But getting a job to Mr. Gibson, I was, as I say, around 14, 15. But through growing up, the families of Montrose Avenue, there was a section that started from, say, as I mentioned, Sears Road, Sears Hill. That was where the village store, a food store was located. And as you come down to Madeira Street, that was a section, because on the north from Madeira Street go up was the area where you would have residents of Abaco. We would call them the Conky Joe people, the white people. Okay, that would be their living area, and you would have the ladies and the men and myself who would seek something to do would either go up there. You had ladies doing iron and washing, and the same as now. Housekeeping and what have you, rearing their children. Okay.
Right.
Down.
Go ahead.
Down from Madeira Street, up to the area by St. George's Church. It was another section, because in those areas you also had homes that we have now, like Yellow Elders. You had 3 or 4 homes in a section, and there you would have these family. But that would be the people who were not as wealthy as the ones who were from Adair Street go up. Okay. And from St. George's moving south, that in that area there, that is where I lived. As a matter of fact, from where Papa's family business is. I was on the east of that. The building was there. It was a home at the time, Father Cooper and his family. And we were on the eastern side of him. But on the main road lived Doyle, Frida and James Burroughs. Doyle and Deansa Burroughs' parents.
Oh, your camera a little up for me, right? Okay.
And they also were indigenous people, I would say, because they had their yard full of animals, goats, ducks, like that, chickens and what have you. And their yard was full of fruits, coconut trees, pear trees, and juju, banana suckers and all of that. And I got to be with Doyle and the answer because in the yard that I live, there were a lot of feed bushes, jumbe feed, and what have you, and other bushes that they would need to take care of their goats. And they would come and they would bring the animals in, and I would look after them. And when they come in the afternoon, we would take them home and what have you. Well, I got adopted into the family. All right, I got adopted. Yes, I got adopted into the family, and whatever they got, I got. And out of the rest of my brothers and sisters, well, I had a extra home. Let me put it that way, in the sense of I could go up there and I could sleep up there, as long as I tell Mama, well, I got up by Miss Burris, everything is okay. And what Doyle and the answer did during their early years, they were boys of athletics. Okay. Doyle was involved in everything that you can name, talking about sports. Okay. Doyle played rugby. He dabbled in trampoline. A little about just about everything. Track and field primarily. The answer, on the other hand, the answer was of the managerial type. All right. He liked his books and he liked to research, and in doing so, he developed the knack of being able to pass that knowledge on to individuals. But both of them had the love for the culture of Junkanoo. And that...
We put a few shots of you through the number of years that you've been rushing. If you can see on the screen, we get some shots of you. Those costumes, you can see that, Ed?
Yes. This one I'm looking at is the last. I think the last one we did with China and the Bahamas to China, because I remember I remember this costume so well. It was constructed. It was designed and constructed by Bain Boy. And I remember when I saw when I went into the shack and I saw this costume, I turned back and Bean Boy asked me what happened. And when he looked at me, I was in tears. Because like I say, when I saw the costume, it just shook me. And I tell him, I say, Bean Boy, I say, you ain't got nothing to worry about. Just do what you got to do. Give me what I got to do, and let's go to Bay Street.
And
And
you remember the year of this particular costume?
I think this was either 13. I
2000.
believe it was 13. I don't know. Papa might be able to help us with that, but
Okay.
I believe that
Just give me a second. Let me check.
yeah, I think that was either 12 or 13. 12. No, because Gus was alive, so that would have been around that area.
Now I
But
know, Ed, with all of your costuming, the detailing, the outline, everything is so defined in your costuming when you paste. And ever use decorations, but yet you
well,
have
but, but,
the same perspective.
well, I tried it once or twice and I didn't like it.
Hmm.
Right, I didn't like it because it took away from my mind the work of the designers and also the vibrancy of the colors. And that was my take on my costume. As a matter of fact, in the early years, um, by pasting for the group, the Valley Boys, I had the opportunity of pasting in with the oil lamp, right? And when I would paste and I would turn the lamp down and I look at that color, and I could see that color in the shadow of the lamp, right? I was satisfied that when that would get into light, that would be explosive, and that was the way I approached my costume. And also, I had some good critics. I mentioned my mother and my brothers, and you know, when the colors weren't right, they wasn't afraid to tell me it wasn't right. All right, and they wasn't afraid to tell me, say, wait till Gus change this because that ain't look good. Okay, and in that sense, um, that was how I approached my costume.
In today's present time, the junkanoo about most of the persons putting so much decorations and different stuff on that. How do you feel about that?
Well, because let me say this, to each his own. Okay, I'm going to say that in a sense because the artist look at something that he is appreciative of, and if he put it out there and is accepted, all right, he see no reason to change it. As you made mention with my costume, whenever I walk on the parade, I get comments that I am appreciative of, and I'm satisfied that the persons who see what I have done with my costume, they appreciate it. Okay. I noticed it, and I realized the enhancement. And we talk about revolution. Um, um, I noticed the enhancement of, okay, certain bead strips and what have you. You know, it helps, but then there is a point where when it's overdone, it doesn't serve the purpose. Okay. And but again, if you are rewarded for it, your mind is telling you I need to change. All right. And
So you use shears, or do you use the razor for your paper cutting, for the cutting of your paper?
my paper cutting is with shears.
Okay.
Yeah, Charmaine.
I,
Sorry, not to cut you off, Ed. I had the opportunity. Oh, sorry. The two things. The costume was Boxing Day 2013. Ed, you were correct. Good memory. And I had an opportunity to work with Ed at the National Art Gallery for the exhibit for Gus Cooper. Charmaine, let me tell you something. I have the utmost respect for Ed when it comes to pacing. I think Ed is one of the top 5 pacers in John Canoe today, regardless of age or whatever you want to say, whatever you want to do. Ed is probably one of the only people who get 13 strips out of a sheet of paper. Ed, am I right or am I wrong?
Yeah, and depends on the paper. To some of them, I get up to 18 strips. Depends on the size of the bond I want to use.
So Charmaine, that means he paces with extremely short bands. I've watched Ed pace the mural on the wall for Gus Cooper, and we've spent countless nights at the art gallery working on those pieces. And I must say, Doc, a masterpiece and a privilege to watch a master at work. I think Denny Top Class Knows has a video of us waking up there, and I would love to see some of that footage because it was just phenomenal to watch Ed actually work, and especially in that type of atmosphere where you have air conditioning and proper lighting as opposed to our homes and the shack. Right? There's no comparison. It was just an exceptional experience. And I say this, Ed is one of the top 5 pacers in John Canoe. Anybody who want to match up with him, come see me or come see Ed. I could very well say that.
Yeah, well, Papa, that particular project, it was a joy and it is a joy for me to do it. As a matter of fact, when I went in there and they showed me what they had, I tell them, I say, this one, you all take anything else you want, leave this one alone. All right. And that was my favorite subject, the lion. So it was a joy doing that piece. Well, it was a joy working on that exhibition. You know.
how long does it normally take you to pace like a shoulder piece?
Well, it depends. I set myself up, and it depends. If I have to do more than one, then I put the ante up. But if I'm doing my own costume, I have to be meticulous because I lay down something, look at it, and see if I'm satisfied with it. I might even sleep on it before I do something else. Because, like I say, I had from my inception in John Canoe to now, my critics, my family, and if they are satisfied with what I do, all right. I normally would do what I got to do, watch them as they walk around, seeing what I'm doing, and wait and listen to hear any comments. But if I don't hear nothing after I finish or after I ain't finished, I go and say, boy, how does it look? Because I want to know I on the right track. And cause as I was saying about my involvement, early involvement, it was pacing pants for George Galah Wilson for their Uncle Sam presentation of New Year's 1962 that caused me to be involved. Because before then, I used to help Doyle in the answer pace costume, but I was not in the group. All right, and getting prepared for the New Year's Day parade. I was pacing this pants, a pinstripe red and white pants for Galah. And he said to me, he said, boy, you might as well come go rush. So mommy was right there. So I say, Mama, I say, Galas say if I could rush. So she said to me, she say, if Doyle and Galas say you can rush, you could rush. But you know, she ain't had to say no more because I run up that pants leg Galas and I say, boy, I gone. He say, where you going? I run up to Doyle. I say, Doyle, Doyle. I say, Mama say I could rush. So I say, rush where? Everybody go sit down. I say, yeah, man. I say, Mama say I could rush. He say, but you can't rush no more this year. It got to be next year. And that's where I started in 1962 Boxing Day, the deck of cards.
Yeah. God. Wow.
Yeah,
I was
1962.
born.
Ed,
Well, well, and the thing about it is, um, uh, the history of the Valley Boys is centered in Centerville or Sears Addition. For the first couple parades, I think from um, 58 to 60, the group was not known as the Valley Boys. The sponsor's name was on the banner. It was DeAnza Burroughs, Doyle's brother, who formulate, or if I may use the word, baptize the group with that name, the Valley Boys. And it was in a conversation at St. George's Church with Deacon or Father
Michael Eldon. Michael
Bishop
Eldon.
Father Eldon.
Right, there you go.
Father Eldon. It was in that conversation. And the conversation was because of the location of our residence between these three hills. During the winter month and fall month, a lot of draft used to set because you had trees, you didn't have all the structures there then. And he mentioned the fact that, this area looked like a dead valley. And the answer say yeah, the Valley Boys. And that's how this group, this organization got its stamp. And from 1962 to 1964, I was in the Bell Line. There are so many different, when I say different, because each individual that would have been there with us, had their input and what they did to make us a success. And one of those persons was Michael Good Curtis, who was, when I joined the group, was the lead beller. And at that time, you only had bell, drums, and foghorn in your group. So Mr. Curtis was in charge of the group. And let me take you down my road to getting up front there where he was. It was on that same parade, Boxing Day, 1962. Again, my costume, it was costume, and Gus, we used to assemble at Gus' home for him to come out to inspect our costumes before we go to Bay Street. And it was there that I guess Gus decided, but hey, listen here, he can put me up front. So when we got to Bay Street to line up, he told me, he said, come here, you come here. And Mr. Curtis, in charge of the Bell Line, during practice, I was in the back. So he had his set people that would have been the front bellers for the Valley Boys. And as I went to the position where Gus put me, when Mr. Curtis came around, he said, boy, what you doing here? I said, Mr. Google with me here. He said, move. Go back. And he put me into the third row of the group. And at that time, the groups was lined up in force because we were going east and west on Bay Street. And as we went down Bay Street, Mr. Curtis went into his mode, his style of ringing those bells. And let me tell you something. I have yet to find anyone who could have, and even now put a pair of bells in his hand, he will still match them bell. All right. We went down Bay Street and I watched Mr. Curtis as he did his double rack and what have you. And I say, boy, I can get you. We went down as far where now Pompeii Museum is. That was the old BEC. That was the resting spot. And as we came back up, that's where I started to get in my groove of my double racking. Mr. Curtis is a wrist action beller. My action is from the hands, not the wrist. And when we got into Rawson Square, that was also a rest stop. We rested there and the group would either make a decision to go up and out by East Street where Mike's shoe store was in that area. Well, East Street, Mike's shoe store was above East Street, but the starting line was there about by Mike's shoe store. And the group would either decide whether they would go up east to go out again to rest, or they would go back West Bay Street to catch the crowd and come back up. Well, when we came out of Rawson Square, we went back down. And on the way, assembling to come back up, Mr. Curtis came and he asked, he said, where that tall boy who is in the back there? So I was off a little bit. I think I was off by the picket fence. I can visualize it right now. And when they say, see him over there, he called me. He said, boy, come here. You, right here. And that was in the front line with him. He was on the left and I'm on the right. And that was my introduction to belling, my introduction to double racking. And from then, you know, the story is out there. But it continued with Mr. Cooper in 1965. He was accepted in Morgan State College and he had to go off to school. And I've been employed by Charles Gibson at Gibson's Grocery. One day he came in and he said, Ed, I'd like to have a conversation with you. I said, yeah, man. I said, what's happening? He said, well, I'm going off to school and I'd like for you to be in charge of the group while I'm off. So I say, me? I say, well, I say, you got my brother Doyle there. He said, yeah, you and Doyle. So Doyle will do the managing part, but you will be the person in charge of the day-to-day running of the group. And that's what I used to do. He and I would communicate by letters, and he would send a design that he would want for the pants or for the shirt, because then we only wear pants and shirt and hat. and probably a cloth shoulder piece. And I would be responsible then to take that to Doyle, and we would work on it as to how we were gonna attack it. And he'll pass it on to me, and I'll take it from there. I have a little bit of pencil skills as well, and I would, you know, do what needed to be done as far as marking out and what have you. And when Gus would come home, say he would be home about 2 weeks before Christmas, and the group would have been ready in that sense. And if there is any altercations or anything like that, he would make that decision. But that's how I got involved in the management of the group, and that's where I was until hands-on until about 2015. I turned that over to the younger members of the group in terms of the management style of it, but I still assist in any way that they need me. My production still goes on because I'm the hat man for the Valley Boys, Bellas per se. Well, the majority of them. So my involvement with the group is still on that way. The team that I'm with for the Bellas is Mr. Ricardo Musgrove. We call him Scooby. And we have Cornell Raw Bass Ingram. Those two are the main person in charge of the bell line. But we have assistants from the Bellas themselves who come in and contribute. And interestingly enough, the story of the Valley Boys is a multiple of persons. When I say a multiple of persons, you look at Gus and you say, oh, Gus. You look at Doyle and you say, oh, Doyle. You look at me and you say, oh, me. But without that support, as I just mentioned about Spooky and those, the Valley would not have gotten out and would not be as successful as it is. And Paparazzi, Papa can tell you a little bit of his story and his involvement and those persons who made those sacrifices to make the Valley Boys the entity that it is. And, hats off to them. One thing about that is an age is that I can't call all the names, all right? And if I call one or two, they can say, oh, well, what about me? But all of them know exactly whom I'm referring to and about, and their involvement, especially after 2000.
One of the questions I wanted to ask you, Ed, but you said you ring from your wrist. You ring from your hand, you said?
Yes.
Okay, explain that for me. And then I also want you to talk to, I noticed about 3 other persons now picking up that ring that you have. I noticed, I think Bobas is doing it. I thought Ian Bradway doing it, and what's the tall guy name?
Reese.
Reese, yeah, Reese seems to really have that down pat.
Yes. When I say from my hand, the wrist motion, if you take your wrist and you flick it, for Mr. Curtis to do that and to get the sounds that he gets out of his bells for the whole morning. Say back then it was from 4 a.m. in the morning until around 8 o'clock. All right. that wrist action, with something else. And his style would bring his two hands a little closer in that motion so that he can perform that wrist action. All right. When I say from my hand, I come primarily my left hand is my stable. My right hand is the music hand that would touch the bells, as my bell maker Jack Sanders would say, boy, you just touch hard, because of the different areas of the bell that I would touch to get my sound.
Okay.
Okay, so I would use, my hands will not be always here. There are times when I'm close together because of the position I want to get in. But then again, this right hand goes off and it goes where my mind lead me to get that sound to come back onto this left hand and to move those bells. This is the reason why, if you check my bells has different engrafted dents on them, because of the different position of the bells that I would touch.
And I noticed your bells are much longer than the normal bells. And then the picks on the inside seems to be much larger.
Well, I found that I get liking sounds out of the size bells that I use. Not that I can't use the smaller ones, but the sounds of and no pun intended, the sounds of leading and saying, "Hey, listen here, I have arrived." You will understand. You would hear it. I remember Jackson saying one morning, he said, "Brother," he said, "You know what? You got to stop, you know." I say, "What you talking about?" He said, "Boy, I in Rawson Square, and you down there to Frederick Street, and I could hear you." So I say, "Well, bro, I'm glad you tell me that." I say, "Now I know that I'm on the right track with them bells." All right, and that's how I approach my belling.
Ed.
And
Sorry,
let me
go ahead.
add something here. My belling is enhanced by my support bellers. Okay. Yes, I can ring. I have no problems with that. I can ring. But if you want to hear the bells the way you enjoy them, give me 3 or 4 other people.
Team effort.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ed.
They help me enhance where I want to go.
Ed, can you speak to the evolution of bells? Because we've gone from obviously the singles when you first started. Now we have doubles and triples, and now we have these new style bells. I've even seen you ringing these. I call them the clunkers or whatever they call them, the wide bells. And speaking of bells, Charmaine, I forgot. Forgive me. You know, I always remember these things in the middle of the show. Stephen Bellett is going to be laid to rest. I think it's Thursday. Yeah, and just want to say condolences to his family and Barabbas once again. But Ed, back to the evolution of bells now with this new bells. Your thoughts on these new bells and the evolution of bells from the single straight through to now these new era bells that everybody ringing.
Well, you know, when I came into John Canoe, we call them cowbells now, but the bells that we used was actually the bells that you would see around a cow neck on the farm. The original, and I call them the original cowbells.
That would be the rounded bottom ones.
The rounded bottom ones. Yes.
Right. Okay.
And the rounded out the rounded mouth ones.
Yeah.
I got my first pair of bells from Mr. A.B. Malcolm. I went, when I say my first pair of Bay Street bells from Mr. A.B. Malcolm. And he was, Mr. A.B. Malcolm was the one who introduced me to the brazing, as he was called them, of bells at that time. Because I would notice that some of the bellers around that time, their bells would, the way the bell was put together, it was a two-part bell. And if you don't braze the two parts, you use them once on Bay Street and they fall apart. Well, I remember going to Malcolm garage on Bay Street, and it just so happened that when I walked into the store, Mr. Malcolm himself was there, and he asked, "Can I help you?" So I said, "Sir, I'd like to purchase a pair of cowbells." So he asked if I was a part of a group. So I said, "Yes, sir." I said, "I'm a part of the City Lumber Yard group." So he said, "Okay." He said, "I have bells here, 4 shillings and 10 shillings. And he showed me the size. And I told him I would want a 10 shilling bell. So he said, "Okay." He said, "Anyhow, come here with me." And I went with him into his inner office, and he showed me his bell, because Mr. Malcolm was also a participant in the parade of the individual category. And he had one of those extra large bell, the round ones. All right. And at the end of it, he had a long plaited cord. You know, I used to see them on boat and things like that. But he showed me that, and he said, "Listen here." He said, "You know, you should me letting you go unless you get these bell brace." He said, "My chief mechanic, who does do this, he isn't in, Mr. Sawyer. He's out for lunch." He said, "He should be back soon." He said, so just wait there." And I waited in his office until Mr. Sawyer came, and Mr. Sawyer took me in the back in the garage, and he brazed them up for me, as I would say, weld them up for me. And they were my first set of bells. Well, at the same time, you know, there were Mr. Hyler, Don Hyler, and he was making bells, and his bells was of a different. This would have been around, I would say 65, 66. His bells was of a different shape, and also you get a different sound out of it. But before then, Mr. Curtis, coming from the East Bay Junkanoo group, because he was with the East Bay before he came to the Valley. As a matter of fact, I think Mr. Curtis joined the Valley in about 60, I think it was about 59, 60. And the East Bay style of belly was the cream of the crop of Junkanoo, and Mr. Curtis bring that there. Because you had James Paul, the primary leader of East Bay. He would be in the front, but just behind the banner, him one, and then the bellers would be behind him. And the bells that they used also was of a type a little bit different from the actual cowbells. They would have them make out of the hard tin. You know, them barrels that used to bring in the oil at that time. They would have their bells make up of that. And, you know, Megon was also a tinsmith, all right? And Megon, Mr. Hyler, and another gentleman, Bruce, off West Street there. They were tinsmiths. You also had a young man who worked with Megon at Standard Plumbing. He was a role. He was also a role. He was a bodybuilder as well. And he also made bells. But Mr. Curtis Groot got for us on a particular a year, I think it was 64, yes, 64. He got some of those bells that was made out of the tin for us. Whilst they were sort of round, they were much slender, and the grip was much conducive to your hand. So they were the bells that the Valley used to dominate the parade as such. Mr. Hyler bells was of a more slender and heavier material. I believe I still have one someplace here, and I still have one of Meg bells someplace here. But the evolving of the bells was for the same purpose of getting a better sound, having a better grip, and for duration. And therefore, different materials were tried. And as you made mention, Papa, Ballot, Tony, he also got into the making of bells in the 90s and what have you. And during that period, we see the transition from the round bells to primarily the bells that we see in today. Starting out with just the bells with contoured,
all right, give me a second.
so that your grip could be much better. Well, I believe it was Meg who put a handle onto the bells. Meg and I had a good relationship as Junkanoo, and from then, and from the Junkanoo side of it, me being in athletics, Meg was an athlete himself, and our spirit linked. And he would make bells, and he'd say, "Boy, I got something for you. I want you to come and try this." And between myself and Mr. Curtis, we would do that, and he would then put out his production like that. I'm quite sure what I'm saying is, what I'm alluding to is the Valley side of it. In the meanwhile, you had the other groups that was participating in Junkanoo. They were developing their own way and style of belling with the same influence of these new style bells. Because you made mention of my length of bells and the size. Well, it wasn't until Jack Sanders, after making trying couple different style bells with me. I used to ring the double bells as well, but the material that he made them out of, they used to last maybe a parade and a half because again of my style ringing.
Right. That was the
But
you. How long does a bell? That's my next question. How long does your bells normally last?
Yeah, Charmaine, let me say this. In Junkanoo world, they say it is breakup bells.
well, as I made mention, Jack tried the different gauges of materials for me. Okay, and over the years, he has come to be able to make me a pair of bells that can go for 2 parades before he have to patch them up for me again. Okay. So I sometimes have, because right now I still have a pair that he did for me about 4 years ago that he keep patching, and to the point where he say, boy, he say I can't put nothing else on this because it ain't gonna hold. All right. But as you made mention of the Leonard bells, um, um, I I use them because of uh, the control that I can have, and in putting out there, I found. Remember me saying to you about what Jackson said he could hear me.
Right. It's the
Them
sound.
bells, yeah, them bells send the sound. Okay. You can't have a bell that you choke up on and you get that sound that you want, or sound that is accepted or conducive to 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 what we do. And you mentioned a number of the young men who have now up to practice that a little bit.
Right.
Um, um, you know, uh, I hope they continue because again, the preservation of it, um, you know, um, um, I know that let me back up a little bit. In our early years of going to Bay Street, there were bellas out there that you would just love to hear right now. All right, um, from the Saxons in particular, and I say this with all respect to all of the bellas that is involved with the Saxons. There was one John Wallace, Kong we call him. Um, it was a joy to hear his bells, and he is still with us. The old soldiers of the bellas, the old soldier, the general of the bellas, Naka.
Okay, yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
to hear Naka and his
Hey, hey,
sidekick.
hey,
Um,
hey,
um,
Ed, I don't think
yeah,
now, that toothpick. I supposed to maybe, why he always have that toothpick anymore. He say now when he's gonna be Churchy, when I sit down and talk to you, I can give you the story on this toothpick.
yeah. Well, I can let him tell you that. But you know, uh, Naka and Jimbo was a force to reckon with. The same way how Mr. Curtis and myself was a team. And when we're talking about the Saxons and Chippy back in the day, they were the groups that you would um, be mindful of because of how we were parading. You start from east, you go down east, a group start from the west, and he come up. and each group have their music. So when you would have come abreast one another, as you go by, you try your level best to knock them off. Now, when you get down from them and you hear them, or you hear yourself, you say, "Oh boy, I got him." And that was some of the wars, if I may use that word, that we used to have because of those persons who would have their surrounding or being surrounded by their assistant bellers. I mentioned John Wallace because we were friends, but we also know that when we get on Bay Street, I see you coming, you see me coming, I turn my back, you turn your back, and that's buckle. All right. Well, Naka and Jimbo, Naka was always one you had to go down. You had to go down for him because he would stay down, and Jimbo would be around him, giving him his support. Jimbo was the dancer. Naka was the one who would say, "Come and get me." All right. And when you see those guys coming, you know you had to buckle down. And
the style of ringing that he bends when he ringing, he's be like he almost to the ground when he ringing.
Oh yes. And he hasn't changed. He hasn't changed.
The style of ringing, you have a similar style, but yours is not as low as his own.
No. I don't get down there like that. But our style is basic bell ringing. It ain't nothing complicated about that. That's the basic style of ringing cowbells. You have that up and down motion.
Right.
Because the bells have a tongue in it.
Okay.
All right. And if you don't move that up and down, you don't hear the tongue. Okay. The advent of the push and pull, that also gives you the sound, but I still prefer my up and down motion. All right. I remember on the introduction of the bucket bells, I was told that, "Hey, listen here, you know what? They ain't for you." I say, "Okay." I say, "They're bells, aren't they?" He say, "Yeah." They say, "Yeah." They say, "But the way you're supposed to ring those bells, you don't. Your style is not suited for these bells." I say, "Okay." And I let that go for a couple of years, for more reason than one. One of the reason, again, getting back to the enhancement of the belling. A young man, Eric Slackscrew Thompson, I think his name was, came from the Saxons to the valley. And he brought with him the style of the bucket bells. And when I first heard him at practice, I look at it, I say, "Boy," I say, "we got something here." And I told him, I say, "Eric, come here." I say, "Come on the side of me." And that was a new era of our belling music. Okay. Again, during that time, you had the double bells that was being primarily used. But here in come this bucket bell with a different sound that I would accompany to with my single bell and my style of ringing. And with the double bells, there you have a 3 version of belling. And there you had the music taking over from where you would have had the early days of the Valley and their 12 belling double rack. So with Eric there, his bucket bells, we start to infuse more bucket bells into the group to enhance our belling. And, you know, I say, okay, now it's time for me to show you all that, you know, a bell is a bell. And I took the bucket bell. It was one Labor Day, and Jack, my bell maker, he said to me, he said, you know, I don't like them bells for you. And when we kick off from East Street, he was there on the porch of the Churchill building where they stand, and I watch him. I could see down the way, and I see him poking out in the road. He put his head out in the road. I say, I know what he's listening to.
He's listening to the bells.
I tell you. And you know, I've been using it in my arsenal of bells as well. So you know, it's there. And what I try to instill in bellers, it is you, not them. It is you who have to make the bells a part of you. Okay. My way of enhancing my belling is reciting or singing my song. Okay. I have my whistle, but there is something going on in my head that enhancing me of my next step and my song that I'm ringing to. And I did this long before the brass came in, of understanding how I could enhance my presentation is by having notes of a song coming out of my whistle. And that's how I get on with my presentation of my belling. Getting back to the Valley Boys in its early days, in that area of Sayers Addition, St. George's was a sporting, St. George's the church had sporting teams. Well, one in particular, they had a cricket team, and they were, the parishioners were sports minded. And Mr. Cooper Doyle, they were in school, and the schools had their track clubs and what have you. And we had friends that would hang out in the valley, such as the late Hugh Bullitt. We had Kirk Knowles, Gordon Farrington. All of those men were sports enthusiasts, track and field in particular at that time. And for the number of young men that we had in the area, they decided that they would form a track club, which would be somewhat of a junior club to the St. George's Club. Mr. Ruzi Cadet, who was also active in the church, he along with Father Eldon. They were conscious as far as our behavior and also in steering us in the right way. The Pioneer Sporting Club, the Pioneer Sporting Team or club was formed in the Valley. The meeting was held at Doyle Burr's house. From there, we became a part of the track conglomerate in the Bahamas, as well as, you know, you had St. Bernard's at the time. And you also had the Dominoes track club. And St. Bernard's was the main rival because you had the Tom Grant, the Bernard Nottage, and those. You had Frank Pancho Raming, to name a few. You know, like I say, when you start calling names and you ain't call all, they can say, well, what about me? But they know exactly who I talking about. But again, Doyle Burris and the Answer Burris. That's where I took up athletics, track, as a distance runner. And there I was with them, joined the club, and a part of our distance team. You had persons on that team like Derek Cambridge, Cleso Munnins, to name a few, Amos Ferguson. You had the Roberts brothers, Kenneth and Vince, you know, and we were a formidable distance team coached by Henry Crawford, the late Henry Crawford, and the late DeAnsa Burroughs. My involvement in track in 1968, as the Olympics were to be held in Mexico, the torch had to be sent to countries. And on the way to Mexico, the torch came to the Bahamas at San Salvador. And I was chosen as the athlete to receive the Olympic torch as it disembarked from the ship. Another prominent track and field icon, Thomas Grant. He was on that team as well. I was the first one to receive it. He was the last one that we handed over to. And the run was done in San Salvador. This was in 1968. Okay. So again, Doyle Burris, my brother. Like he say, you might be from a different mother, but I am still your brother. Okay. And it was around, and because of these young men, that the area we lived in was policed by the young men. Mind you, like I say, from the area there by St. George's out to Wolf Road, there was the hub of the density of the population, as you would say, well, probably the low income, or as they say, the middle class, and the other class, as they now try to separate us. But also, I'm talking about Montrose Avenue, but there you had Mount Royal Avenue, and the connection to those two avenues were corners. So from one end, you're connected straight through, and the population as such were more young men than young women, and Junkanoo and athletics was the order of the day. After you finish athletics, October the 12th, which would have been the last track meet, you're ready for Junkanoo. Okay, and that's how we grew up in that area. Also, the Valley Boys was then branch off. We had members living out south. We had members living in Fox Hill. We had members living on Robinson Road. I haven't mentioned Mackey Street as yet, because behind St. George's Church was Colmersville.
Right.
And Colmersville was the hub, one of the hub of the Valley Boys population. You had persons like, as we know of, Joe Blacks, Kendall Gibson Panner, those persons in there who had a slew of, you had Tubby Brown, okay, and Stephen Eggy Boom Bain came out of that area. And the Valley's strength was nurtured because of the proximity of us. We were able to visit one another. My home was the shack for the Valley Boys between the years of 1965 to 1970. That was in Malone Yard, house number 13. When our costume would have been finalized, pants and shirt, my responsibility was to then, when Gus say, here, this yours, was to then go and do what I needed to do. And for the majority of years, I would be responsible for pasting. At that time, you had about 40 members or so, solid members, 40, 50 solid members. And I would paste the majority of the Valley costume in that house, number 13 in Malone Yard, with my sister.
How do you feel in today's time, the group has gone from, like you say, 40 members to like almost 400 strong?
Well, with the evolvement of the groups and the adding on of different sections. You know, it was evident as we started to grow, because from 40 we grew up to say 60, 80. You know, we continue to grow, and as we grow with the different enhancement of costume, with the shoulder piece and what have you, you know, the group grew, and then there had to be a separation. Well, that separation comes with responsibility, whereas you had to have other people involved other than yourself. And this is where Gus was a genius in my mind. I'm using that word in the sense of him being able to communicate with people, to work with him along that way. Now, the back line is still there. As much as they put out front there, as much as they feel like they still need that back line.
Engine room.
That's the engine room.
But Ed, even the engine room has evolved over years. We've added, like you said, the brass. We've added scrapers. We've added tonkalakas. Your thoughts on the addition of these instruments in the back line?
Well, Papa, I embraced it. Like I said, just like how we did the how I did the bucket bells and the different changes of bells. Well, let me say this. I've had the good fortune of being involved in decision to and placement of certain section of the group. And as you mentioned, the kunkalakas and the scrapers and what have you, they came in after the brass. But the best position to where we can get the best productivity out of those instruments was decided by several people, as you know, Papa. And there has been push and pull as to where the positioning of these instruments, in particular the kunkalakas, because the thought was that the kunkalakas sounded like the bell, but it doesn't give you the oomph that the bell give you, and is getting in the way. You know, let's try.
The bell seemed overpowered. I mean, in terms of being able to hear them.
Well, the bells have to overpower them, because the bells has been used. It's not knocked on as the bell that is knocked on by the kunkalakas. We even try placing the kunkalakas in the back and in the middle. And as you say, they overpower. The bells were overpowering them. Hence, the brass needed, again, in my mind, they needed to have that boost. Okay, when I say they needed to have that boost, I said at one time, I say, come here. I say, please listen to this. And I took a kunkalakas and myself, and I went in the front. Okay, I say, let's go. And there was this fighting of acceptance of where we should position them. Um, um, I would like to believe that I had some input of them being where they are positioned now, especially within the Valley Boys. When it comes to the scrapers, and one thing I do is I always get in there. I go into the Kunkalakas and we do our thing. I go into the scrapers and we do our thing, and I watch for their reaction. And I am satisfied that a bell or two bells can be enhanced in both of those sections to also give you better music. Okay. Now, will it be tried? I don't know. Will I try to bend some arms in the valley for next year to try it? Stay tuned. But I embrace the advent of these different instruments coming. The brass, as you know, Vincent Rule, our host father, he had the major role in the brass being accepted on Bay Street. And that letter from Miami that they played to cause them to win, we still study in that letter. All right. Mr. Sims and Shane Monica and Hunter, Mr. Hunter, I believe he's Assistant Commissioner of Police, and a few other a person with the horns. They came in to the valley and they made their impression on the valley. Mr. Sims being a student of the music art. You know, anytime I see him, it's something like him and V's. All right. You notice when Mr. Sims came out of the line to direct, as we would put it, he had his long staff, and I watch him. I watch that staff. When that staff make a certain move, I say, boy, this thing over. It's just like Big V's. When Big V's hit the road, even when we were going up and down and she was pushing her trolley, when you see Big V's make that move, you know the parade over. So, you know, the brass enhance our presentation. Sometime you would listen to tapes and you would only hear the brass. And I don't know why is that? Because if you listen to where the brass is coming from, you know, I get a joy of being in the back of the sousaphone. And those guys are pumping. And as they pump, and I do my thing, and when I see them and they looking around and they get that look on their face, I say, let's go. All right. So the enhancement of those added instrument, Papa, is in my mind is a part of us now, and we should do our best to make sure that it is preserved. I know there are talks about musicians. Well, they only blow in, they don't learn music. Well, that is not the case. That is not the case, because now each group have professional musicians training their members. So that is not the case. The enhancement of the horns with the drums, the bells, the whistle, and the black horns, the kalankas and the scrapers give us what we now enjoy, Junkanoo.
Ed, you missed out a very important section. I mean, not a section, but an instrument that a lot of people are envious your group for. It's the conch shell.
Well,
recently in the conversation, people say the conch shell is the one instrument would bind everything all together, keep it all together.
Yes, if you got somebody who can blow that conch shell, it was just like the bugle. We had a young man, Larry Turnquest, out of Rhodes Avenue, that was a bugler. And you know, when you hear that, and you hear boom, you know, you get that separation, but then you get that togetherness. The conch shell, you listen to the conch shell, Papa, it's above the brass.
Yeah.
All right. We are in the back there, and the brass is out front there. We are hearing a sniffle of the brass. When I say a sniffle, to keep us in sync, but that conch shell keep us binded. And we have two conch shell blows there that you know, I ain't taking away nothing from nobody else, but they'll have to come to show me that they're better than them.
When is Mr. Bastian, eh?
No, you're talking.
One for sure. About, what is Dominic Sweeten? Dominic Sweeten.
I think he's going to. Oh no, he's going to foghorn. Mr. Bastian is going to foghorn.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking about Scrappy? Yeah, Scrappy is a foghorn blower. Yeah, the black horn. Plus, he is also a beller.
Yeah, I saw him belling before too.
Okay. Yeah. So all of the instruments that we use in the parade and in the groups enhances us. All right. You got the cymbal. We got a one-man section.
Yeah.
Okay. We got a one-man section, and when he hit them cymbals, you hear the difference. Huh? You hear the difference. What do you say, Dwight?
Yeah, right.
And you know I don't know how much other instruments they're gonna bring, but what we have here now is something that is envied of the cultural universe, if I might say so. Is that Junkanoo music?
Yeah.
And that Junkanoo music is made up of these instruments. You know, so yes, I totally endorse that because it gives me an opportunity to add in a few more knocks on my bells. You know, but our history, the Valley Boys' history, is tied into the social fiber of our nation. Members of our group stretch from Inagua to Bimini, and I'm quite sure other groups can make that same claim. So I guess it's up to us to make sure that the Junkanoo culture stay alive. It ain't nothing that I've seen thus far that tells me that there would not be problems. Okay. But we have to overcome them. When we look at our forefathers, what they have overcome, you know, I talked about Mr. Malcolm, Lenny Bartlett, Mr. Lenny Bartlett was Gus' tutor in terms of construction of costumes and in terms of team selection. And you know, decision on naming of our presentation and what have you. Mr. Bartlett, along with Mr. Philip Camp, and you know, those persons, they took their individuals on their shoulder or their head. That's how we start. Okay.
Ed, sorry, not to interrupt you. When you talk about the history of Junkanoo, you mentioned a lot of these names. A lot of these seem to be white Bahamians who were involved in Junkanoo. Why the disparity now? Why don't we have so many, or we don't have any participation by white Bahamians as much as we used to? Is it just a cultural thing, or is it just they lost interest? What actually happened there?
Well, I would like to say that what I'm going to say is my thoughts. I told you about me going to Mr. Malcolm. I didn't have any other communications with him, but I always look for him on Bay Street. Mr. Philip Camp, who was another white Bahamian, he was an undertaker. I had never had any communication for him, but knowing that he was a participant in Junkanoo, I looked for him. Mr. Lenny Bartlett, who was of our complexion, was up against these two icons. And he would always be in the number. Okay. Now, the reason why the white, and I'm using this word with all respect, or Conky Joe populace of our people is not involved to the extent that we believe that they should. When we look at the Junior Junkanoo, and we saw Abaco for the first time, and we saw their presentation, I remember being fixated to probably the smallest member of that group that was on the ship, and the way that he, you know, the way he allowed the Junkanoo spirit to lead him. And as we saw the results of Abaco's presentation and their position in the parade, the involvement of anything is from the individual. When we would go a particular road and make a statement, we would get involved in yay and nay. Okay. Within the Valley Boys organization, we have people of light skin color. I'm quite sure within the majority of the group, we have people of light skin color. All right. But to the extent of them being there to be able to say, hey, listen here, boy, this section 50 or 60 or 70 or C, or seeing them in the numbers that we of colors are, I can't say why they haven't participated. You know, again, like I say, to each their own. And I hope that Abaco would continue in that way, Elutra, and in that way of
there's also, don't forget that there's also the Life Key School, which is made up of non-Bahamians who actually participated in the last several of the Junior Junkanoo parades.
Okay,
and have done very well.
I didn't even venture there. Exactly. Talking about Life Key, the area there, they enhance the culture. When I say they enhance the culture, they appreciate the culture. And I guess we see it because of them presenting their school into the culture, having the opportunity to do performances in the area of Life at Key. You know, just every time it's well received. But to say, to have them come into the shack or to be at practice or to be out there in major group, I don't know why.
Ed, one more thing about that evolution and race relations in terms of Junkanoo, because I mean, a lot of people just, I don't think this has ever been discussed, period, on any other Junkanoo show, or we don't really talk about it, period. But there's also, I was just thinking about it just now, I lost my track of thought. What is it now? There was, I'm coming back to that. I can come back to that. Give me a second.
Yeah. But as we continue with Junkanoo, there can be no conversation without mentioning the Saxons superstars in Junkanoo.
So how do you feel about rivalry you guys have been having for so many years back? You remember back in the days, just to be two groups, either you was a Saxon or white boys.
Well, yes, because the major group, when we say the senior group, because you know, in 1958, there was you had the two sections as you had, but it was in the A and B. You had the senior and the junior group, right? And well, when the Valley Boys came to Bay in 58, you had Punch Bowl, you had Chippy, you had John Bow, you had all of those. Your father was there, and you know, the coming of other groups. When you look at the valley, the majority of groups out there now, even into the B category, can tell you that they pass through the ranks of the valley. Either the leader or certain members that have some say within those major groups. Okay, but the Valley and the Saxons have become the breeding ground for the now present day Junkanoo culture. Okay, and I guess we'll always be looked at as being the group to beat, so to speak, because of our longevity, and the longevity produced the records. And what I believe most of these groups have to realize is that we are still here. And as they come, we are here. So if they are bringing in something, we gonna be a part of that.
These two groups actually birthed a lot of the other groups that are now here.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Okay. So even though there is, and I'm saying this without fear or favor, there is this like for certain groups. Okay. We all come from these two major groups. And the only reason why this is likes are there, I'm quite sure, and again, my thoughts, is because the leadership of the groups have not told the story from whence they come. Okay. I'm just saying my thoughts is just behoove, it's just mind-boggling how there could be so much confusion.
Animosity.
Animosity. If you know that, hey, listen here, I started from here. I started from you.
Yeah.
All right. When you hear persons would come out and they would say, boy, I been in the valley. What you do in the valley? That's the first question they can ask. No story is told what I did in the valley. So I can't talk about the valley. Okay. Roots. All right. Roots, prime, leaders.
Valley Boys, yeah.
Valley Boys. Okay. Yes, all of us have our difference of opinion and what have you. But I believe that to enhance and to substantiate the staple of the culture of Junkanoo. The stories have to be told. Your members have to understand where you came from. Winston Sherman, who is, anytime you talk about the Vikings, you talk about Shem, was a member of the Valley Boys. He, Boldy, Fred Bain, Trike, Clark, a number of others. And Shem, if you're out there, send Sis the name of all those fellas who rush in the valley with you. And you know, he and Gus were friends, school friends. And he wanted to do in the area here, Nassau Street, and on the hill in that area, what Gus did in the valley. It wasn't no animosity between the two of them. It wasn't no break off. It wasn't no bad feelings. Okay. It was just that the vision that both of them as young men saw that we as a cultural people needed. Okay. And did the Vikings beat the Valley? Yes, boy. I mean, to tell you, them 3 wins they put on us. I mean, you know, you get up there, line up and say, boy, I got this. And when you look down the road, you see them hibiscus coming. Boom. I say, what the devil is this? Huh? Get down the road there, you look, and you see the Russian Cossacks coming. What the? Huh? Huh? Then when you look again, there you go, my favorite little thing, the butterflies. You know, these visionaries, Jonknu Khan, their neighborhood, I have reasons to go until the school year. Just about every afternoon, I would go to pick up my grands from school, Aubrey sales. And under the cotton and almond tree there, opposite McPhee Street, that wall that encased the courts and what have you, out front there on Nassau Street Hill. I sit there with the men of that area, and we talk, Jonknu. Just about all of the groups are mentioned there. Okay. So that bond, that friendship bond, that cultural friendship bond is knitted. All right. There's no you say and I say, and when I say no, you say and I say, boy, I cut in paper. Okay, fine. Boy, we can do this. Boy, one family can be hard. Boy, well, you know, the Saxons got to build themselves up, say, because, you know, we had a couple of good blows. All right. When the parade over, boy, listen here. You know, I put that one on you. I tell you I was going to get you. These are the conversations that we have. Okay. Now I am saying, I am talking about me personally. Okay. And I have been blessed by the Almighty, because to be embraced by all. Okay. Let me start with lying in the Saxons. Maurice. Okay. I jump to one family and I go to TJ. That's Tyrone Jr. Okay. Bappy. Noel.
Right.
Okay. I'm talking about being able to have their attention, have their respect, and still get out there and participate. And there is the understanding that one have to win. Okay, I'm saying all groups, and like I say, you know, when you don't mention, you don't mention all, you get in trouble. Okay, well, but as you see right now, Genesis.
Yeah.
Okay.
But don't call no more. Don't call no more. We winding down. We got but 5 minutes. We winding down. So
come on, listen here. Time going like that.
Ed, Ed, Shaman,
Uh-huh.
I remember the question I wanted to ask Ed about the race relations and how two white individuals changed John Canoe, but John Canoes don't know it. I call two names, Ed McPhee, Barry Miller and Yagan Spangler.
Oh,
Yes. Yes, and briefly, let me tell you, Barry Miller, as a teacher, came to us by Jack Knowles, another teacher, and Barry is also an artist in the true sense of the word. And I remember Barry Knowles coming into the shack. I was there, and Gus said to me, "Say, boy, say I want you to meet someone." So I say, "Okay." I say, "Who?" He said, he can be here soon. When I look, I saw this gentleman and this lady came in, and he say, "Ed McPhee, this is Barry Miller." So I say, "Oh, okay." So I look at him, and I say, "Come here a minute, please." And I took him away from Gus, and I say, "My name is Ed McPhee." He say, "Yeah, I know." Say, "Gus told me about you." I say, "So what could you do to enhance my culture?" Barry took uh, a marker and a piece of cardboard, and he made a picture. And he took the cutter, not a shears. He took the cutter and he did what he had to do. So I say, "Gus, I say, I know what you can do." I say, "But this man can build my costume." Okay. Spangler, on the other hand, Spangler came in and there was this talking about who we can get to carve this and carve that and carve the next thing. Well, right in Malcolm Garage again, Spangler did the work that will forever be talked about in Junkanoo. And those two, as Papa White mentioned, was also a part of the Valley Boy. Mind you, Spangler helped or did work for other people, but his initial work came from the Valley. So I didn't know time going that fast, cuz.
I, okay. Well, it's been quite an awesome evening. We've had so many. I've been on history lane. I just replaying so much things that you said about in your mind. So we'd like to thank you, my co-host Paparazzi, and my producer. We would like to thank you so much for this awesome conversation. We talked for 2 hours and a couple of minutes, but before we shut down, we want to play something for you to see. Folks who have joined us here, if you're watching us, FIE's Junkanoo Rush, legend of our time, Edward McPhee. Thank you so much, guys. So right now we're gonna play something special for you, and just to let the people see what you can do.
I can give you a little
There you have it. You see those?
Because I thank you very much for this opportunity and
Yes.
and the spirit of Junkanoo for this year and me. Just let me say this before I go. I know there are some out there who are listening, but within the Valley Boys, we have our senior members who are still talking about what we can do for Christmas. Well, I know my spirit, as you see behind me, because I got something here, but I can do something similar to what you just saw just now. So, like I say, we got some old people. I got to see what time I can do this so I can't disturb them. But you know, my spirit going to be. My spirit going to be. I normally walk from George Street up to Elizabeth Avenue every Boxing Day and New Year's morning. I can be walking that same road.
Don't forget we can be on lockdown now, so I know if you can walk.
Hey, listen, you ain't hear what I say. I say my spirit going to Bay Street.
Yeah, I missed that part.
All right.
All right, so we're going to conclude tonight just showing one of the persons who got their billing from you. Here we go.
Yes. Mr. Reese.
Yep.
Yes.
There you have it, Mr. Reese, one of your students. So again, cuz we'd like to thank you on behalf of Paparazzi and my producer, Brighton. Papa, any last words you want to say before we sign?
Nah, that's about it. Thanks, Ed. Thanks for the history lesson, bro.
Yes, it's been very entrenching. Notice I didn't have to talk very much, and I thank you for that. So like we say at FIE's Junkin Rush, feel it in your belly. Everybody be safe. You know, keep safe during this COVID time. Wear your mask, sanitize, and keep your social distancing. Everybody have a good night.
Good night.
Good night, all.
Night.